Now let's talk about fully synthesizing hi-hats. This is what I do by far the least, because I think it's kind of impractical and usually hi-hat samples sound better. But there are a couple techniques that you might want to know about. So the first one is just using Bitwig's Ehat here, which actually sounds kind of decent. So what this does, it's basically similar to what we did last with just test tone. So let me just turn all these mixes down, and then you've just got, it just kind of synthesizes this noise burst. Let me turn this up. When I hit a MIDI note, and then you can shape, attack, and decay, map velocity to it, and so on and so on. Then you've got a comb filter on it. This kind of acts similarly, but not quite the same to the convolution thing we did, but it's a less fancy way of doing this. Just create some resonances and stuff. And then you've got this FM hit that you can mix in. Which is just this FM sine wave, square wave kind of thing. And this is basically a little synthesizer for hi-hats, and then modulation is just how much variation you get between notes and stuff. Like it's almost like a chorus or something, you know. Just to get some variation. Then you've got your high pass filter here. And this is a nice simple way to kind of synthesize hi-hats. It's not the most realistic way, not the most interesting way. I personally don't like using it very much. This FM hit, oh god. Too much modulation, I guess. But it's a nice, easy way to get some hi-hats, just using Bitwig's Ehat. Now, one thing more interesting is a technique that was discovered by AU5. I think you might have seen him do this on YouTube with Serum, and I want to kind of translate it into the grid for you and kind of explain the theory behind it. So if you look at a hi-hat here, or actually let's look at a cymbal, because the cymbal is basically a longer hi-hat. You know, it's the same kind of metallic resonating dish kind of situation. Let's get an acoustic cymbal and just find one here. Nice one, ideally. And let's just look at it on a spectrum analyzer to kind of figure out what really makes it up. Because the interesting part of the cymbal is that it's kind of noise, but it's not really noise. It's actually a lot of resonances here. So you can see all these different kind of resonant peaks, and you can kind of hear them too. And so you can approach this by synthesizing noise and just saying, okay, I care more about the granular shape here. Or you can say, okay, I want to create all these little peaks and kind of create a more clean harmonic cymbal, because often what will end up cutting through your mix are actually the resonances of sounds and not the noisy parts. So you can do this, and this often sounds bad, but sometimes it can kind of work and it can lead to some interesting results. You get a polygrid here, and don't worry, we're just gonna do some quite basic grid stuff here. So just draw any old note in here, and then just solo this track. And basically what we want is, we want a spectrum analyzer first of all, just so we can kind of see if we're on the right track or not. And attenuate, because this might get very loud. Because that's kind of one of the dangers with this, I suppose. And then what we want to use is, we want to use some kind of sine wave oscillator that can do unison. So we will use either the wavetable for this, because it has unison options here, or we can use Swarm for this, which is, I guess, the more unison designed oscillator. Let's just try it with Swarm first. So let's get an AD envelope, just a simple, you know, don't worry, this won't be our hi-hat here. And then let's get a note. just because I don't really want to use the MIDI node. I want to create my own custom node here, so where is it? No, I think it's called pitch actually. Where is it? I always have trouble finding this thing here. It doesn't look very interesting, but this is really useful, so let's just listen to this here. And kind of tune it, put a limiter on here, just for safety and sanity kind of. And then we can kind of shape this these resonances of the saw wave by really spreading this unison. And shifting this up, and you can get these kind of cymbally sounding resonances with this. You can hear. Also try doing this with sines, but I prefer it with saw waves because they have more harmonics. And you can hear how this kind of sounds like a cymbal. So then next what we want to do is we want to make it longer. Why does it sound so bad now? Because we switched it to sine wave, so you can see how we get these kinds of resonances here. Now what we might want to do next is just to get some FM in here, so we're gonna get another swarm. Just create more resonances, route this into this phase modulation input. And this will get really quite noisy, so let's maybe get the sines here. And the mix down quite a bit, and then maybe get some more resonances, just get another swarm here. Add these two together, maybe pitch this up, detune it a bit. And you can hear how this kind of sounds like a cymbal. We'll shape this further, don't worry, it won't sound quite as bad. And this way we can kind of synthesize cymbals based on their resonances. So the next thing we want to do is we probably want to filter this quite a bit. So let's get EQ+. Actually want to see the spectrum analyzer for this. Just turn this down here a bit. Kind of filter out the lows. And then maybe place like a comb filter on this to get some more resonances. And this way we can kind of get these interesting digital, weirdly clean but also weirdly dirty cymbal sounds. We might want to do stuff like add some wave shaping to this, all in the name of adding more harmonics. You can hear it starts sounding a bit too washed out, which I personally don't like as much. Actually, what we might want to do is we might want to add these two together and then just attenuate this wave-shaped signal a bit. So this is kind of a more noisy part. And this way we've kind of got this weird synthetic cymbal sound, and that's the kind of technique to use unison to create all these weird resonances. We can experiment with things like voice stacking. So get a stack spread modulator here. Just crank up the voice stacking, and this is gonna get loud, so be warned, and just detune these all. Sometimes it can sound nice, sometimes it can sound horrible. Very much a trial and error kind of thing. So this way we can get our kind of cymbally sound. Then we can still, of course, send this through a convolution. Maybe put another crash in here. quite interesting, very resonant sounds with this. You know, you hear it. Tune this up, maybe turn the mix down a bit. And we can get a tool in here to make sure the envelope is nice and proper. And just map this to this here. And this way we can kind of get more resonant cymbals. So let's maybe do something where we just generate a couple of these, so that we can use them for special moments in our arrangement. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to join these all together, and I'm just going to place some random modulators on this. So every one of these is going to be kind of different. Just get some hold here, this bipolar, and just map this to trigger this with new nodes, and then like copy this a few times. And just map these to a whole load of stuff here. So let's maybe map this to this thing spread. Map these through the envelope. Map this to the Chebyshev. Map this to, I don't know, the comb filter frequency. Map this to the EQ stuff here, why not? And also make some of these mono, just because I think it'll lead to more variation. Then maybe what else can we map this to? Yeah, that's kind of it. Map this to the dry wet mix here. And then we'll just Control B. Oh god, okay, these aren't long enough. So let's just drag this out by holding Alt to make these kind of longer, to really allow them to ring out. And then turning the attenuate down a bit so they don't get clipped as hard. And then we can kind of turn the gain down, and then we've generated a bunch of cymbals. I'm just going to delete this polygrid now, and we've got a nice custom cymbal sample here. And some of these will sound better than others. Let's try. I generated a couple, so let's just pick the nice ones out. This is nice. This is horrible. These are nice. The last three are horrible, so we've got 4 cymbals, and then we can just place these anywhere in a song where we need a kind of cymbal or hi-hat by just shortening them. So yeah, this is kind of an interesting technique. Sorry for opening Spotify. I've actually been meaning to quit recording. So yeah, this is the kind of cymbal synthesis technique that's full on just synthesizing these little harmonics, which can get you some nice unique cymbal sounds. So yeah, see you in the next one on arranging your hi-hats and kind of making them sound less uniform and boring, and humanizing them and doing all sorts of interesting stuff like that. So yeah, till then, bye.